Right, this is just a quick follow-on video from my acorn flour video, because the proof is always in the pudding. So what we've got to do now is bake a pie. So I've got the acorn flour here, and there's a dog hair in it already. So here's the acorn flour, and it has worked out eventually quite good, but I had terrible problem drying it out because I couldn't do it in the sun outside because it's been too wet and windy, and I don't have a dehydrator, so I had to do it by the wood stove. So it ended up a bit lumpy, so I tried to smash it up with the pestle and mortar, but that didn't work, so I resorted to my flour mill, and that's worked out quite fine. Now, acorn flour does not have any gluten in it, so you can't use it on its own because it won't bind together. So I bake quite big pies. This is my pie dish here, and I use almost 450 grams of flour. So I'm going to use 1/3 acorn flour and 2/3 regular plain flour. So that'll be 150 grams of acorn flour and 300 grams of normal flour. So I'm going to weigh it out using the scales I've got here, and then I shall add half the weight again in fat, and I split the fat between 100 grams of lard and 100 grams of this cake bake mix. So this is not a video on making pies, so I'm just going to get on, make the pie, and then we'll see what the pastry's like when it's done, because this is just a short follow-on video. Well, here is the pastry. I've added a little milk to it just to make it pliable, and it's not much different from regular pastry, except it is a lot darker, and when you're mixing it you can feel it's a lot more sort of granular, grainy, grits, all that goodness. So I'm just going to leave that to sit now while I peel the apples, and I'll put the oven on just to be warming. But as I say, this is not a video on making pies, but we do have to show the acorn flour in use, and this is 33% acorn flour. I perhaps could have put a bit more in than that, but we've got to start with something we know that's going to work, and we can alter the ingredients from there. So I'll just put that in there just to sit, and I'll just get on with the apples now. Okay, so it's been a very good season for apples this year. This is just a few we've picked, and I'll use the worst ones. So I'll just get on and peel these. Standard procedure, I peel them and put them in lemon juice so they don't go brown, and then I coat them in, I don't put any sugar on eating apples, but those are sort of in between eating and cookers, so I might put just a touch of sugar on and a bit of cinnamon. Right, I've got to move the camera out the way now so I can do the apples. Need more apples. That's not full enough. Let's do a couple more. Well, it's been in for just over 1 hour on 200 degrees C, but after half an hour I turn it down to 150 because I think this oven runs a little bit hot. So we'll take it out and we'll see what we've got. Put it on here. So there we go then. It's a bit darker than I'm used to, but it looks a good pastry. So I can't cut it open yet. I've got to wait for it to cool. So I'll just leave it for a few hours to cool and then we'll cut it up. But it looks good. Right, so now it's the proper moment of truth where we cut into the pie, start dishing it up and taste the pastry. So my pies are usually crumbly, so the pastry usually crumbles a bit, so we'll just see how that goes. Fairly solid pastry. Oh, it's not that bad. Not bad at all. So we get 8 pieces out of this, so it's quite easy to portion it out. We've got a bit of cave in there where I've cut the slots to let the steam out. So there we are then, there's the first piece out, and that came out quite alright. So now I'm just going to test a bit of the pastry, the top pastry. So it has a slight bit more substance than ordinary pastry. You might say a little bit heavier. The cinnamon's slightly overpowering, so you can't really get a different taste of the pastry, but it's quite acceptable. So I'd say it's probably highly nutritious, and for a bit of work, granted, we can supplement at least a third of our flour. So I won't eat any more because this will be served later on with custard. So, something worth thinking of, all that effort to get some half decent flour. I've got to work on my drying of it and on the speed or the method of leaching it, because I'm sure I could make it a lot less labour intensive than it was. But I have plenty of more acorns to experiment with, so that's another one I'll keep up on. And there are lots of other uses of those acorn shells and the tree in general, because you can use, especially the galls, you can use them for tanning. I've used them for tanning before, and you can also use them for making ink. So plenty more scope for experimenting with the oak tree. So I'll leave it for there for now then, and perhaps I'll make some bread and we'll see how that goes, although I have done that in the past and it does go very well. So I'll catch you in the next one.